And the governor is doing everything by executive order, by the way. So legislature stopped meeting March 14th, but I'll get into that a little bit later. We're working on finding that critical balance between public health and getting people back to work and the economy back online. It's been 3 months now since we shut everything down. And it worked. It did what we needed to do. And the prime reason for that shutdown was to keep people out of the hospitals and the hospitals from being flooded past being able to care for people. So, and that was managed quite well. None of the hospitals, Stanford Hospital in particular, never hit capacity, certainly with coronavirus patients. So it was managed well. Yesterday, in the Wall Street Journal, Scott Gottlieb, who was the commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration from 2017 to 2019, he's also a Westport resident. He wrote a great piece in the Wall Street Journal yesterday that I could send you the link to that in addition to the other 2 links I mentioned. But he said the public attitude is now mixed and contradictory on the epidemiology data. A forthcoming survey of 3,500 Americans conducted this month came up with 58% of Americans want public officials to take all necessary steps to ensure public is safe, but that's down from 78% a couple of months ago. So what he's pointing out in this article is there's a real shift of people understanding we need to get the economy back online, but we still need to take precautions on keeping people safe. He does go on to say further that practicing, there's the testing and tracing is going to be critical as we start to get that online more than we have in the past in our state. And practicing sensible behavior that can reduce the spread, which is masks, hand washing, social distancing when possible. So it's basically common sense. But he's a great resource, and he served for about a month on Governor Lamont's panel of experts before he went to the consulting group in Boston. So he's a great resource and could be a good speaker at some point. The vaccines, I understand there are 10 of them that are in trials right now, and there are another, I think, 30 that are in the final stages of testing. The immunity situation just varies. The information coming out on that is every couple of days there's some new piece, and spoke recently to a pediatrician, and she said the reason so many women don't get it in the same numbers that men do is because the women have been exposed to so many of their kids' viruses that they tend to have more immunity built in. So they're doing research on this as we speak. The most critical piece is, as we do get the economy back online, is that seniors and nursing homes, that we take far more precautions than were in place at the beginning of this virus and this pandemic. Certainly the numbers were unacceptable, and need to do a better job on that. A terrific resource are our local chambers of commerce. Susan Cater at the Darien Chamber does a terrific job of educating everybody that signs up for it on news from the state level, and so does Brian Griffin over in Norwalk, and so does Heather Kavanaugh at Stanford Chamber of Commerce. So we've got terrific resources in all 3 of those people for latest information from the state level. Tomorrow is the second part of the phase-in. So the phase-ins are about a month apart. This, I think, is 3 days shy of a month apart. But this one, I think everybody's probably up to speed on this, but I'll just read a couple of the highlights. And then this is what I'll send you, Felicia, to post online. This came from the Norwalk Chamber of Commerce. And phase 2 allows these businesses to open amusement parks, hotels, indoor dining at 50% capacity, but still no bars, which for restaurants, that's tricky because that's where they make their money. That's where the biggest margin is. And we need to get more restaurants back online and to be able to make money to stay alive. It's a lot of jobs in our state. Indoor museums, zoos, aquariums, indoor recreation, bowling, movie theaters, libraries, which is great, outdoor events, personal services, nail salons, hair salons, I think we all know came in about 2 weeks ago. Some people are still, my son included, a little shaggy. He gets that shag fixed today. Sports and fitness facilities, gyms, fitness centers, pools also come online tomorrow. So They all have protocols, and you can read about the industry-specific requirements on the link that I will send Felicia to send out or post. And they all have industry, they're all very specific, and I think well done. And then the other piece that I'll send you from the Darien Chamber is the Connecticut Back to Work initiative that Governor Lamont and David Lehman, who's the commissioner of the Department of Consumer and Community Development, Economic and Community Development, all the letters and all the acronyms. And it's a public-private partnership that will provide resources to workers and businesses impacted by the coronavirus. And I read through it. I'm very impressed with it. I think it's a terrific step and a real positive step forward as we certainly recover the economy from this virus. The Capitol, so on to what we do in Hartford, we shut everything down March 12th. Haven't been up there since, nobody's been up there. Everybody's working from home, tremendous amount of working from home. Mostly for me, it's been dealing with the Department of Labor, some Department of Motor Vehicles, constituent issues, and Department of Labor, because there's a significant lag in huge number of people filing, obviously. And DOL was not ready to handle that kind of load. So Governor Lamont continues to run on executive orders. I think has the record now for the third most executive orders in the country. And he's running his executive orders in consultation with Boston Consulting Group, which he paid $2 million for them to come in and advise on protocols for opening and what's the best timetable and things like that. The executive order ends September 9th. So we understand we have been called into potential for special session by the governor for two issues. One, the absentee ballot, which there's concern about the coronavirus having a resurgence this fall and would prohibit or would keep people from voting in November. And right now, there are 6 reasons you can vote absentee. One of them is illness, but it doesn't define exactly. I think the language reads, if you think you're going to be, or know you're going to be sick, if you're going to be sick on election day, that's a reason for voting absentee, along with being in the military, your religion forbids it, you're going to be out of town. Those are a couple of the other ones. But we would expand that statutory language to include in the event of a pandemic. So if people are concerned about the contagiousness of a pandemic, they could vote absentee, which is 2 ways. You either go to town hall, then town clerk, anywhere from 21 days up to election day and vote there, avoiding big crowds, or you can download a ballot from your local town clerk, fill out the application, you download an application, fill out the application, return it to the town clerk, they then send you a ballot. So it's very tightly controlled. It's what they call custody control is maintained. So that, I certainly support that effort. I think anything we can do for people to feel comfortable about voting, and they should vote, it's a big election coming up. I do support that initiative. The other one is police accountability legislation, which certainly after what happened in Minnesota, it's certain things do need to be addressed. And there's a group meeting on that right now in Hartford, and it's a very good group. So, and I will say that both, and I represent Norwalk and Darien, and both police departments, we've got some of the highest standards in the country for police recruiting, hiring, training. And I've done a Citizens Police Academy in Norwalk. It was 12 weeks, 2.5 hours each night, Tuesday, Thursday. And I will tell you, I was very impressed with our police, what they have to do, how they do it, and the difficulty of having to navigate a situation that is escalating very quickly. So I would encourage any of you to take the course. It gives you a real insight into what our police do and the risks they take every day. Not to say that they shouldn't have more keep current on training, and certainly de-escalation training would be critical, but we do have some of the highest standards in the country. So let's see what else. Education key issues looking forward. It's going to be critical to safeguard the quality of our public education in our state, focused on equal opportunity for all citizens. And I think that's certainly, for many of us in the legislature, taken on new meaning with the situation in Minneapolis and the racial situation. We've got to do a much better job in our urban districts with kids. There's not as much accountability as there should be. There needs to be certainly more focus and more services provided. It's not necessarily about more money, but it's certainly accountability is going to be a key piece there. These kids deserve a better education. Special session, our economy, local businesses. It's going to be important to work with local businesses, that's you all, and support them in this economic recovery from the impact of the coronavirus. The other mail-in ballot, well, it's separate from absentee balloting. So there are going to be two voting initiatives that you need to be aware of. One is, I mentioned, the absentee ballot. The other one is a mail-in ballot process, which would be the Secretary of State would send an application for a ballot to every single person in the state. So everybody would get an absentee ballot application in their mailbox. We don't, so it's not proactive on the voter's part. The Secretary of State just sends it. I need to know a lot. I think many of us need to know a lot more about this, because it's how do you, who does the list? How's it sent? Where is it accounted for? You send the application back in, then you get another ballot and you can put the ballot in a drop box. I think it merits conversation. There are a couple of states that are doing it this way already. It's worked well. But many of us want to make sure, again, that the security is there, the safeguard is there, especially in this election that's, you know, likely to be highly contentious. So that is something we also might be going into special session for. The primary responsibility for legislators this year, this was an off year, so we're all on 2-year terms. And the first year we set the budget, which was last year, and this year we make budget adjustments. It's a $40 billion 2-year budget, so $20 billion a year. And this year we were doing fine until the coronavirus hit. And now we're about $570 million in deficit. So we are going to have to erase that deficit somehow. There are a group of legislators that are already calling for tax increases. And I don't believe that's a solution at all. I see a number of areas where we can cut spending, create more efficiencies, certainly in some of the big state agencies. It's both Department of Public Health and Department of Labor showed real fault lines on big government bureaucracy, and it's not the most efficient thing going. The other, our rainy day fund is $2.5 billion, so $570 million. This year deficit, projected deficit for next fiscal year is $2.3 billion. Rainy day fund is $2.5 billion. So rainy day fund's not going to cover what our projected deficit is. We've got to reinvent Connecticut, and we can do that. You know, it just, we need your help in doing this. The other issue, and I think I'll leave with this one, is Connecticut has more state employees than any other, per capita, than any other state in the country. And they have a lot of loyalty among the majority party in Connecticut. And many of us believe this is hurting our economy. The state union, a number of state union employees, July 1st, will be getting between a 3.5 to a 5% increase on July 1st at a cost of $197 million. Now, we all know people in this state that have either lost their jobs, they're furloughed. It just doesn't seem that this is the time to get that kind of pay increase. New York and Rhode Island have canceled their pay increases. The union leaders have told Governor Lamont, no way, we're sticking to this, and there's no dealing on this. So they just are a tremendous power over the majority party, and we need to have that modified, because no layoffs, basically free healthcare. Certainly a certain group of retired employees have free healthcare. We need to rebalance that. we are not, it's not creating a path of fiscal sustainability for our state. And it's hence why the jobs we keep rolling through so many jobs, and people don't, job creators don't want to settle here. So, and Subway, about a week ago, Subway announced they are moving their headquarters to Florida. So I think we have an opportunity to make an honest assessment of what government services should be, what they shouldn't be, what's a common sense way to deliver them. So, and do it in a more cost efficient and effective way. So, questions?
How do we do questions?
I'll do it. Oh, you have a question, Kirsten?
Oh, I do, but I wasn't sure if there's a process. Should I just go ahead?
Let me see if there's anything in chat. No. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. I would like to know what media you think is the most fair for me to read and, you know, to really keep up on things.
Good question.
What do you?
I love two things. Wall Street Journal, love, love, love. I think they've tremendous integrity, intelligence, well-researched. And Connecticut Mirror, I think, does a good job.
Connecticut Mirror, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Connecticut Mirror is very fair. Hearst papers, I don't feel well, I'll just leave it at that. I don't feel they research their editorials very well. There are a lot of facts missing, and they have a tremendous monopoly in Fairfield County. But Connecticut Mirror, Keith Faniff of Connecticut Mirror is an excellent financial writer. He really knows his stuff. It's available online. They do ask for a contribution. I do send something annually to them, but it's a great resource. And you can get it in your inbox every morning.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, great question, thank you.
Terry, I have a question.
Yes.
Cynthia Lyon from the Business Council, the former.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay,
yes.
we had a relationship. So based on that Business Council background, is there any conversation about transportation or tolls, and is that on anybody's agenda?
Yes, certainly, yes. The tolls got ridiculously political. Mm-hmm. I think I know a number of the constituents that I represent feel we should have tolls, or tolls make sense. We shouldn't have, no, we shouldn't have, that's not the right way to say it. The tolls make great sense. It's a user fee for something they are using. Other states have it. It's a predictable revenue source. However, we spend more per mile for road construction and transportation infrastructure than any other state in the country. So we need to investigate why I know largely why we are, but we need to understand what are the cost drivers. We need to create a lot more efficiency before we should ask one more dime from one more taxpayer. So no, tolls right now are not on the table. Will they be on this table in the next session? Yes, and they should be. I mean, we need to have a predictable funding stream for the transportation projects. The other situation that's happened too is the majority party keeps raiding the Special Transportation Fund, and Keith Faniff did a terrific article on that. I believe it was maybe, oh boy, it must have been this spring, before we shut down, because I remember thanking him in person for it. It was a very good article where he traced where all the money had gone that was supposed to go to the Special Transportation Fund and got diverted into the general fund.
All right, I do.
So, and what was your other question, Cynthia? About
what?
Well, was that it? Just the transport? No, you asked something else.
I just wanted to know, I didn't ask this, but what are you going to do without the Business Council?
Well, I'm not quite sure why it disbanded.
Why don't we talk offline?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Terry, I have a question.
Oh, yes, Karen.
Oops, sorry. Go ahead, Karen.
Oh, so maybe this is more, I know you focus more on the business, and your presentation has been fabulous. I just wondered what your magic ball might be looking ahead and thinking about the schools and the fall.
Oh, good question. I know it's being discussed now, and Jamie might have more information on that. we've heard all kinds of things. The kids, first of all, I believe firmly the kids need to be back in school for a huge variety of reasons. The kids need to be back in school. They are not getting sick. It's the people older than 65. Well, you've seen the graphs. So we need to figure out protocols to getting them in. I know there's a big group of people working on it. We've got a very good commissioner of education. Our local superintendent is very good. Norwalk superintendent is leaving. He's been phenomenal. There are good people working on it. I believe, Jamie, if you want to feed in what you're hearing on this about opening the schools in the fall. I know the intent is to do that. How they're going to do it is being discussed.
Yeah, the
Jamie,
latest,
do you have any?
Sure. The latest that I heard from our superintendent, Dr. Alan Adley, is that it will likely not be a district by district decision. It will be a state mandated decision, and the state will come up with all the protocols. The CDC has some guidelines out right now that I believe were used to craft the guidelines around summer school. The districts that chose to open for summer school, Darien did not choose to open. They're doing e-learning for extended school year and summer school. And likely many of those guidelines will be utilized to put together the reopening plan for the fall. It's very complicated. It will be challenging on the students and the teachers. So there's going to have to be a cost-benefit analysis done on the importance of actually being in the classroom, or at least some of the kids being in the classroom. It could end up being a combination of in-facility learning and some kids e-learning, and then the opportunity to swap. But I think they're working diligently on it, and districts are concerned about making sure they get the guidance soon enough so that they can in fact prepare the facilities well in advance of school. So that's a lot to say, nothing definitive yet, but the state will be putting out the ultimate guidance.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. I think everyone agrees the kids need to be back in school for so many reasons, social, emotional learning, and the parents need to be back at work and not figuring out how they're going to work at the same time as educate their kids. I think every single I know every morning I woke up and I said a thank you that I wasn't having to work and educate kids, because it's a challenge. And with all heartfelt thanks to all you who balance that so well.
I was just going to comment if, you know, the trend that we're seeing, or, you know, with the real estate agents and everything else, that Connecticut is actually doing really well.
Yes,
and
just like the last 3 weeks.
Right. I mean, the agents that are in the space here have been saying, like, they have 16 listings, 9 under contract. I mean, it's amazing. They can't breathe. So I'm just wondering if, you know, there's something, you know, light at the end of the tunnel here for Connecticut in terms of, you know, getting out of this hole in some way.
Great question. It's two different things at play. People are coming out from New York City because they don't want to be cooped up in New York City anymore. They want yards. After a couple of years of hearing people want more densely urbanized area, and now they want yards and they want a suburban community. That's going to be different from the way our state is run, and the way our state is run is causing enough businesses and people to leave our state. Those are two different situations, two different dynamics driving those. We've got to get people to understand where certain legislators vote and how that's harming I believe, and we'll make a case every single day, why it harms our economy. You can't continue an allegiance to a group of state union workers to the detriment of this state. And that's pretty much the bottom line. But yes, it's terrific that these real estate brokers are having a great spring and hopefully a great summer. And houses are turning like this, and they're bidding wars on houses, especially between 1 million and 2.5 million. It's a very, very hot market. Full price bids on houses.
I mean, I'm seeing, like, interest, like, it's happening slowly, but just about, again, like for a co-working space, because all these people are working at home and they're going to want to be in a space that's, because they don't, either they're buying, this is what some of the real estate agents have been telling me, is like they're buying houses because they're just scooping them up that are maybe even too small to continue to work in. So they're going to need that too. So for small businesses or remote workers, it should be
terrific for you. Yes, absolutely. But it's the structural situation of how our state is run and the taxation policy that is separate from the reason people are coming out.
Yeah.
So.
Can I ask you, Terrie, can I ask you a process question?
Yes.
I live in Stamford, so I don't think you're, you said you're just in Darien and Norwalk, right?
I represent, yes, almost all of
Okay.
Darien and a good part of Norwalk, yes.
Got it. Okay, so this would just be process.
Yes.
How are the state parks and
Oh.
the beaches and parks in the around Connecticut controlled? Because you know, there are some parks that are closed because of social distancing, but we have parks right here in Japan and beaches that are totally open, and really 30% of the cars coming in are from New York,
Oh.
and they're just overrun with people, hugely crowded. So what do we do as a community? Or maybe you and I, you know, if it doesn't apply to anybody else, maybe you and I can talk about this offline. Just curious about what we can do.
Great point. So local beaches are the purview of your local municipality. So David Martin, I'm sure, has a park and rec committee of some name.
Yep.
And he is the person to talk to, and the chair of that committee, to find out what their rules are and what their protocols are for people out of state. Most communities have restrictions on how many, if any, people can come in from out of town to use their beaches, because the beaches are supported by town dollars. And even residents have to buy a beach sticker. And I know Greenwich, Todd's Point, you cannot get on that beach unless you live in Greenwich. Yeah,
So
I know.
hard,
Used to be open all year, or used to be open except the summer months. And then each year they gradually added a bit of time. And now I think for anybody who doesn't live in Greenwich, Todd's Point is only open maybe November, December, January, February. But then there are the state parks, which you're referring to, that are still open, have always been opened. Maybe not. Well, they get to open tomorrow, but that's under state.
Anyway, okay.
State
So
rules.
it's really the local, and we're in touch with the local.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's how it's controlled.
So
Okay.
state parks like Hammonasset, Sherwood Island State Park, those are all fall under state guidelines and state regulations.
Okay. But
Yeah.
that there are other locals that are really under the purview of the mayor and
Correct.
the local reps. Got it.
Yes, and if you know the town, we are a democracy where the citizens can rise up and say, this doesn't work, how about trying this? You know, we don't believe, or there should be some restrictions.
We're trying to rise up. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sue. Anybody else? Certainly, any questions that might come to you later, reach out to me. Felicia can share my contact info.
Can I ask
Or you
one
can
more?
just, yes, please.
Speaking of people rising up,
Yes.
since I am a mother of a 12-year-old who was basically done with online learning at 10:30 every day
Oh,
and looking for mommy who works to help her, I really want to see the schools open. I am not at all concerned about the kids getting sick. I really think that older people have learned to sort of quarantine themselves.
right.
I mean, maybe I don't have the latest data, but it seems like the data points in that direction. So
It does.
what group should I tap into to get my voice added to other voices?
Great question. Which town do you live in this area?
I live in Old Greenwich.
Okay. I'm sure they have a parent education page on Facebook, a closed Facebook group with certain rules. So you can't, it can't turn into a free for all. There's certain parameters with which you have to adhere. I would join that. I would also contact your Board of Education. And whenever you communicate with any board or commissioner or mayor or first selectman or legislator, I always encourage, please be respectful, because we try and do, well, some people get very emotional and they get passionate, and that comes out in a creative way.
Well, you had mentioned that you thought it was going to be sort of a statewide mandate, and like Dr. Tony Jones is our superintendent of schools here. and I
Right.
love her, and she actually loved my book. So she's a fan of mine. I'm a fan of
Yeah.
hers. It's all great. But
Email her.
and you've
Email
met
her.
her?
No,
Oh,
I've
sorry.
not. I've not. But
But
email her. Go ahead.
so I should just stick with her. But you don't know of anything statewide that's being organized?
Not yet. Oh, no, you mean, no, I see what you're saying. Uh, There is, every town has a group of very active school parents. Join in with them, and I would email all the Board of Ed members. That's their job, is to listen to constituents. You are a constituent, and it's to listen to your concerns. Keep it very brief. Really long emails, if you get a lot of them, the key points get lost.
Right.
Just keep it very brief, and just what you said, a couple of paragraphs max, and communicate that to the Board of Ed chair and all the members of the Board of Ed. I would copy Fred Camillo,
Sure.
so he knows. And also, no, there's no statewide group that I know of, but the local boards of education, the parent groups, are quite active.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But Terry, just to be clear, what you're saying ultimately, though, the decisions about school you think are going to drive from the governor down and be driven so that all the districts are really going to operate from the same reopening plan, right?
Right.
So that we're all operating as a state from the same playbook, if you would.
Right.
That we open in the same general way, so that Greenwich doesn't open in one way and Darien opens in a different way. It very much that we all actually did a very different distance learning plan.
I know.
And that was that angered a lot of people, and I think that's what they're trying not to do, I think.
So, because every town had different accountability standards on
Right.
that, I know.
And I think they're trying not to do that
right.
going forward for the fall, it would seem, right?
Right. So it's tricky when you have a top-down big mandate on how things are going to operate, because each district has different needs and different ways of delivering services. So
well,
it'll be interesting. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we all have different, when it comes down to it, we all have the financial, right? Some,
right.
Look at Darien, Greenwich, and New Canaan, right? We have a lot more money to feed into the system to have computers and Wi-Fi. It's the have and the have-nots across the state.
Correct. And that's what we need to remedy.
And that's what we need to remedy. I mean, I think, a lot of us, I looked at the Darien moms page, and we had a lot of complaining about the distance learning, but at the end of the day, you go to Bridgeport, we had nothing to complain about, quite frankly.
Correct. Correct.
You go to Bridgeport Hartford where they couldn't do anything.
No, I know. Kids, they either didn't have internet or they didn't have laptops.
They didn't have computers, and they lost so much. So
yes.
we should stop complaining. That's all I'll say about that.
No, I know. I hear it's probably, to my mind, it's the most important conversation we need to have this next session. It's how to make sure every child in this state gets a top-rate education. As someone said, it's a civil rights issue of our era. So certainly what I'm going to be focused on. And I've always done a lot in education, especially around special ed. So yeah, I don't know, Karen, it's a good question. Jamie and I can keep, I certainly send out e-blasts every so often. You can check a webpage, you can call either one of us. Certainly want to hear your thoughts and where we move forward. I think it's going to be a balance between what the state hands down. There's going to have to be some latitude in the rules they send down or the regulations they send down. So it's going to be a busy summer, but a good summer. There's a silver lining. This is an opportunity. There are lots of opportunity in this.
Well, thank you so much, Terry. This was really terrific. I feel so honored that we can actually have this conversation, and you hear our thoughts and pass it on, and to have you as part of our a representation. So we'll send something out to everybody. I'm going to just stop recording and we can continue conversation if anybody wants, or Terry, do you want to just I can put your information in chat. What's your email address?
It's TERRIE
Okay.
dot Wood at C as in cat, GA dot CT dot GOV. So it stands for Connecticut General Assembly. Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, great. And we'll send some
Good.
more information out afterwards.